Presented by Revolution Radio, broadcasting live from the Roanoke Valley of southwestern Virginia. Join us and see what life looks like from a medium's perspective with Reverend Tracey Lockwood, the medium's medium. We'll explore the tools of psychic development, hear stories and experiences from the other side, and learn to listen to our natural intuition. Now, our host, Reverend Tracey Lockwood.
Hello, beautiful lights, and welcome to another episode of From a Medium's Perspective. Today, I'm going to be finishing up our 100 questions about spirit mediumship. The base of it is taken from an antiquated book called The Laws of Spirit Mediumship, written by Reverend Lena Barnes-Jeffs. And what I'm doing is working through the 100 questions that were posed to her and her answers and putting in my own opinion on top of it. And before I got going, I just wanted to remind you that if you're interested in training with me, I would love to have you. I have several different options that I've created. Not only the certification course that you might have heard about, it's a 12-week program, and certification is given according to the level of your performance. But I also have a 6-week psychic development and 6-week mediumship development taught twice a year. And I have a new thing, which is a weekly development circle where you can just join other like-minded people for an hour on a Sunday evening and practice your art. And speaking of art, I also have a spirit art course that I'm going to start teaching in January. It's a 4-week program, and also a channeling course that I'm teaching in January. And all of those things are taught via live webinar. So you can study from the comfort of your own home, wherever you are around the world. There's no limit on where you could tune in from. Anyway, I'd love to work with you. If you're curious about details, I'll be hopefully having enough time to talk about it at the end of the show. Just in case not, I'll point you to my website at mediumtracylockwood.com. Well. So we are just plowing through it. We are on question 72 of our list of 100 questions about mediumship. And we were just getting into trance healing. Mediumship, you might not think of mediums being healers, but I definitely consider giving a reading to someone and helping them find closure or understanding, or giving them a fresh perspective on their life or relationships or plans for the future, and developing their spiritual abilities, a healing process. But healing itself can delve far beyond the energetic and mental realm, and on the psychological realm, it can go on into the physical realm. So let's see what they say and what they ask about mediumship in this book here. So question 72, what phase of mediumship does healing come under? And it says that it comes under both mental and physical phases of mediumship. The spiritual energy, which is sent into the body of the patient by laying on of hands, is a physical phase, while the mental healing is demonstrated by the power of prayer. Well, I'd probably rephrase that. I think that we are energetic bodies, and I think that all of us have a certain flow to our energy, and that if you can adjust the energy of the person that you're working with to pluff it out and help them, create an avenue where something that's lodged there can be released. There are lots of different ways to approach that you can evoke a physical healing. And we've talked about trance healing on a show earlier, and mentioned some of those techniques in other episodes too. So, and then also it is the focus or lack of focus in healing. I wanted to say that too. You know, if you focus, there are people like the mental medium that focus their energy on the patient, and maybe there's some medical mediums that do that where they see what's wrong in the body or sense what areas are disturbed. But in trance healing, of course, you're stepping out of the way and letting spirit work through you, and you really have no attachment at all to what's going on in the body of your client, and just letting spirit work through you. It's a very powerful way to work. Question number 73. We notice that the two terms spirit healing and spiritual healing are used. How do you differentiate between the two? Well, I'm going to have to rely on their answer because I'm not quite sure what they mean by spirit versus spiritual healing. They say spiritual healing is the phase of mediumship in which the spirit doctor works through his human instrument to assist humanity through the power of divine love, either mentally or through magnetic forces. Magnetic healing is also the same. So spiritual healing, I guess, is when you use your guides and angels and the love of God or the divine to work through you, and it uses mental and magnetic forces. Spirit healing is a cure that is affected by the spirit entity upon the patient without the aid of a human instrument. Oh, I guess that's more like trance healing then. This is mental to a great extent, although the teachers tell us they're able to use magnetic forces as well. It could be considered divine healing. So they're saying that spiritual healing is when you're consciously using your ability as a medium to see, feel, and know about what's going on via the assistance of your guides and angels. And spirit healing is more like trance healing, I guess, that you kind of step out the way and the work is done without your conscious knowledge there. 74, can anyone become a healer? They say no, because each have their own phase of mediumship, which they're best fitted for. And that phase, once discovered, should be developed to the highest degree. I just want to pick on that and say, I think that anyone with the right motivation and willing to set aside ego and intellect and open themselves to the energy of the other side, the subtle realms and higher vibrational forces, I bet pretty much anyone can be a healer. I don't know if that means that we all develop to that degree, but I wouldn't want to think that there was an impediment to that. So can anyone become a healer? They say no. I say yes with the right attitude and motivation. Question 75, who was the greatest spiritual healer the world has ever known? And you have to remember they came from a spiritualist perspective, so they're going to have a specifically biblical reference, and I'll give you what they say. Jesus of Nazareth, and they say without a doubt that was his main phase of mediumship, and many incidences of his marvelous healing power seen in the Bible. I would money bet that almost every religion and every culture has amazing spiritual healers as part of it. I know that that's a tradition in many of the indigenous cultures and many of the ancient religions that come through that are much older than Christianity itself. And I don't really think there's anything new under the sun, although it's all a lot of excitement about what that stuff is. So I don't know. Jesus definitely was an amazing healer, and there are lots of stories of that. And to his credit, that's how they, give him that title of the greatest spiritual healer. But I would money bet that there are many, many other spiritual healers through many traditions. Question 76, what natural law must be understood thoroughly by the medium who is trying to heal? And they say that's the law of vibration. and that's affects all the phases of mediumship. But the law of vibration is really important in healing, because there is that shift in energy. And if you know anything about working with energy, if you don't want to be drained by the people that need your assistance, instead of going down to their level and trying to get into their head and emotions, it's better to try to bring them up to your vibrational level and help them move forward in a compassionate and empathic way. Setting that vibration is really important, and that is the natural law, the law of vibration, that's used in healing. 77, does distance make any difference in mental healing? None at all, they say. I absolutely agree with that. What occurs is at a higher vibrational realm, so we're talking about a minimum of, etheric and other layers that go up there. But I think that, some of the vibrations come past even through the mental realm and past and beyond that. So time and space, anything that occurs in that fifth dimension or fourth dimension definitely doesn't matter how far you're working on someone. Number 78, why should healers always strive to keep every organ of their bodies clean and healthy? And I'll say what they say, and then I'll speak. Because the spirit operators tell us that they're able to draw from the healthy organs of the healer to assist the corresponding diseased organ of the patient. If the healer is not healthy, it is therefore more difficult for the spirit to draw the magnetic forces to accomplish a cure. Wow. If anything, that tells me that it would really be better to do trance healing or something where you step out of the way and let those energies and forces come through you rather than from you. That's sort of like the difference between you personally battling a spirit and letting your guides and angels handle that for you. So I'm all about not draining my essence. I do, however, believe that mediums should try to live a clean and healthy lifestyle as far as diet, in terms of exercise, rest, care of the body, Deva, because we are human and we need to be in our best state of receptivity and ability to tune in to other vibrations, keep our stress down, be able to step outside of our personal lives in order to become neutral enough to read or work in healing for other people. Question 79, why must we always think right to assist in a healing? Our thoughts have a great deal to do with the success of such an operation. Yeah, well, you know that. Thoughts become things. And our thoughts are extremely powerful because our thought is the direction of our energy. Energy follows focus. So keeping our thoughts on higher things and on positive things and directed toward accomplishing things in the future and progress in our life, those are the things that create an energy that's forward moving. And thoughts would be very important in terms of healing. They have, using affirmations and blah, blah, blah about that. Question 80. I hear the term inspirational writing. Oh, yeah. Often used by spiritualists. Is that a phase of mediumship, inspirational writing? And they say, yes, it is. And it's most beautiful and constructive. And I don't know if you know what an inspirational writing is, but there's an influence that we open ourselves up to when we open our intuition. And that is thoughts and things that are larger than us. And so as we sit down to write or to channel or to do anything else, frankly, art or whatever, there's that level of us trying to craft it based on our instinct. And then when we start going into our intuitive, psychic, mediumship, and channeling zones along that spectrum of development, inspirational writing is the phase that you start to let go of your control and you start opening yourself up to allowing things to flow through you, that creative force of the universe to just flow through you and express itself uniquely and individually through you. As you go further along in inspirational writing, it can go into a form of physical mediumship, which is called automatic writing. Well, actually, it's not even quite physical then. Automatic writing would be the extreme, I guess. And then it can cross over to physical mediumship, where you're not even touching the page and there's stuff appearing on it. I've not experienced that. I'm just saying it can happen. So inspirational writing is a phase of mediumship. 81, how can this phase of mediumship be developed? And they say by going into the silence and having a prayerful attitude, trying to contact the thought vibrations coming from the higher mind of spirit. That mind, the universal mind, is seeking through your instrumentality to assist humanity. I love their archaic way of talking. Write whatever comes into your mind as you seek to tune in, and gradually as you develop, you'll be able to receive better, learning to submerge your own personality and receive correctly, almost word for word from spirit. Yeah, that's what I was talking about, that continuum, where you just sort of let it flow. And as you get more and more adept at that, and it's a great way to start getting to know your guides too, their vibration and their personalities, is after you've met them, just sit with them and imagine what they would say, and then just start writing. And don't worry about what it's going to end up being. Sometimes they're incredibly beautiful messages, and it's just thought by thought and sentence by sentence, and you step back and wow, it's awesome. It's really fun too. 82, do you believe an inspirational writer must be educated in order to write well, or can they receive wonderful writings regardless of their limitation? And they say that inspirational writing comes through the mentality of the medium. So how that medium expresses themselves does affect things, and I would agree to that. However, you can bring it to a level where it bypasses your use of constructive language and goes into ideology or philosophies, or brings to your mind vocabulary or proper grammar that might not be so natural to you. But it's okay to write it just the way you speak, and just the way you write doesn't make it any less of a thing. It's still beautiful and creative. Do you believe all public speakers, question 83, do you believe all public speakers to be inspired? And they say yes, to an extent. And again, that's that continuum that goes along the way with people letting go and allowing inspiration to come to them, and then genius to come to them, and then just kind of sitting back and watching it kind of write itself. I don't mean that in a physical medium, but in the zone, and it's just so easy. Question 84, what is trance mediumship? And we've talked about in another episode, so I'll just read their answer. In trance, the mind and personality of the medium are entirely submerged. I want to say there's a gradation of trance and altered state. And they say the spirit taking full control of the instrument, and the medium's unconscious of anything that's said or done. Trance mediumship can go to the point where the medium is completely oblivious of what they're saying, like Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet. I think we've mentioned him before. But you don't have to be all the way out in order to bring through really profound messages from spirit. And there is, again, that continuum between inspiration, where you would be fully conscious but allowing, and then as you kind of go into deeper and deeper, you could be in light trance, medium trance, no pun intended, heavy trance, deep trance, and you can be in dead trance. Dead trance is when you're out. Like, you're just I don't know, sometimes you go somewhere in a place of light, you leave your body and your mind is elsewhere and you're not aware of what your body's doing. I don't personally have to get to that state to channel or to bring through messages, and I'm probably too paranoid to do it anyway. But there are some wonderful mediums that are trusting of spirit and have developed to that degree, and it's really amazing when they kind of check in and check out. It's sort of like dream state, if you want to think about it. They're dreams that you remember and dreams that you don't. It's not something scary. It's just a state of mind. Question 85, what phase do you think is the best or the better? And they say some people prefer inspiration to trance, and some like to develop it into materialization, but they say that actually using your gifts more at the psychic end, or the aware, inspired mediumship end, are considered better because ego gets involved with physical mediumship, and it also takes a huge amount of energy from the medium. There's a question as to whether it shortens your lifespan to be used for physical mediumship or causes problems. I think it's just more that it would be likely that it would be more difficult to maintain yourself in a balanced state so that you don't exhaust yourself being used for physical mediumship. 86, do you believe that the Great Spirit, teachers, and lecturers of the past are likely to manifest through an illiterate, untrained mind? So they're asking, will the spiritual masters of yesteryear speak through an uneducated mind? If they mean someone who doesn't have an education, they say no, that absolutely not. Like attracts like. However, I dispute that, because I've witnessed people that were maybe not so great, not so literate, but when they allow spirit to speak through them, are completely transformed. So I don't think that's a thing. I think maybe it takes time to allow the mind of a higher being to express itself through you and be comfortable with that and begin saying things that are outside your knowledge base. But I'm going to fight with them on that. They say that you wouldn't have a great teacher speak through you if you weren't trained or that. But I disagree. I've seen first-time channelers do amazing works of channeling, and they don't have any training in that. I think it's a natural ability. So whatever. 87. What is automatic writing? And what phase of mediumship does it come under? And automatic writing is what I told you about. It's the one where you're not really thinking and your hand's moving. You might even use the opposite hand that you normally write from, and you're not really aware of what's being written. So it's kind of independent of that. And so what phase of that? They consider it physical, the physical phase. There's the mental and physical phases of mediumship. It just means the expression, the way that spirit moves through them, through the mind of the medium versus automatically through the body, physical. 88. We also hear of a phase of mediumship called slate writing. Wow, that's old. Is it similar to inspirational or automatic writing? Slates are those things that kids used to carry to school, where you use chalk and a miniature chalkboard at school. Those, we don't use those anymore. In fact, I don't even think we have blackboards anymore. Probably, maybe we do. But, we've got whiteboards and all kinds of green screens and all kinds of things. But anyway, slate writing, they say, is it similar to inspirational or automatic writing? And they said no, because slate writer is a physical medium, but the medium doesn't do the writing. That's well said. The spirit does this through the use of ectoplasm, drawn from the body of the medium. In other words, the words would just appear. The medium would not use a tool or a chalk or any other thing to mark on the slate. The slate would just be beside the medium with the medium not touching it. Very similar to card precipitation or some of those other things. 89, what great Bible character can we liken our slate writer today? They say Moses, talking about the tablets of stone. Not going to spend time on that. It's true, but we'll move on. Question 90, must one always place pencils in the slates? They're asking, do you have to have pencils and pens and chalks and stuff there for the spirit to work and to write on something like the wall or paper or a slate? And no, you don't have to. If you have it there, spirit will use it. But if you don't have it there, they'll pull pigment from other stuff. 91, is this a very common phase? No, it's rather uncommon. Yeah, it is pretty uncommon because there are very few mediums that develop their gift into the physical realm, and those that do may not be very public about it, or they may be completely not public about it. 92, who were the best known slate writers in America? And they list, and this is for historical posterity here, the best known slate writers in America were Pierre L.O.A. Keeler and Mrs. Laura Pruden of Cincinnati, Ohio, who received for Horace Leaf of London a most convincing statement from Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Both of these splendid mediums are now in the spirit world and also in the who's who of spirit mediumship, I would think. Pierre Keeler and Laura Pruden of Ohio, slate writers. And that's slate, in case you haven't heard that clearly, S-L-A-T-E. 93, what is prophecy and are prophets fortune tellers? What is prophecy and are prophets fortune tellers? Prophecy is the phase of mediumship, they say, which enables one to peer into the future and to forecast coming events. The spirit who gives these prophecies must have a thorough knowledge of the laws of the universe in order to forecast with any degree of success. A prophet is not a fortune teller, for there is a wide gulf between the two. A fortune teller reads by stars, cards, or palms, while a spiritualist prophet receives messages through spirit communion. We had just touched on the issue of prophecy and prophets and fortune tellers, and you might not have thought about mediums being prophets, but we are. And I don't mean that we're there to lead a nation out of another one of torment or whatever, but prophets are people that can foretell events or forecast events that are going, sort of like your sports forecaster or your weather forecaster, but of a more spiritual nature. And there's that question about, can we be 100% accurate? And the answer to that is yes. And I've discussed an example of that in a previous episode, but it does take some discipline and training. And just because somebody is a medium or a psychic doesn't mean that they are 100% accurate. You should always use your own resonance to what's being said, or internal guidance sense and common sense, and consulting with professionals that are related to the issues that are brought up during your reading, of course. But prophecy is really amazing. And it's interesting because there are some things that are written in life, and there are other things that are not yet written in life. In other words, we wonder, like, what control do we have over life? Is it already predestined or whatever? And you may have different opinions about that, but from working with spirit and learning more and more and still not there, not having arrived. But it's very interesting to me to think that we have a high will that is sort of when we're in our fully conscious state, our high soul will, where we're out of body, and it's before we've come into this world, and we make some decisions about what we're willing to bear or undertake during our trip down here. And of course, entering the physical body, we have a little bit of amnesia, and we come into this world and we learn to make choices, but we sort of are doing it in a double-blind study kind of thing where we don't remember everything about who we are. We can access those things if we need to, but our point is to experience duality, to experience separateness, to experience resistance, and to be a test of character, both to learn, but also to teach. While we're down here, we forget that we also influence other people's lives when we're down here too, and become some of their things. And so when we sight down as mediums, when we sight down a path to the future, we can look at several things. Some things, like I said, are already written, and those things are not going to change. I don't care what you do, they're not going to change unless you change them maybe at the high soul level, working in a very esoteric way to access your being at that level and make changes and amendments while you're down here, which certainly would be possible. But, you know, some things are written, but there are very few of those things because maybe, you know, who's in our life and how long we're going to be here or some things like that, but sort of rudimentary things. But as we're navigating life and making choices, we do want to know, you know, if I go this way, what's going to happen? If I go that way, if I stay in this relationship that's not working for me versus leave them, you know, what are the consequences of that? How am I going to feel? How I'm going to be? And it's important to be able to, as a reader, to differentiate between what is written and what is being written, and give possibilities, because we do have a free will down here. And so I just thought I'd say that about fortune telling and prophecy. And again, fortune telling deals with tools. And it's kind of an old word, isn't it? Like, who goes around saying, oh, the fortune teller, except in that song, you know. Anyway, so question 94, did we have prophets in Bible times? Like I said, this is skewed toward a Christian perspective. Not that that's a bad perspective. I'm just saying that it's not very world savvy. And of course, there were prophets in the Bible, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, you know, but there are prophets in each and every religion, and there are prophets in each and every culture. They are the ones that guide and lead people in their decision making forward. One of the great ones out of Islam is the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And so, you know, they're just, prophets don't only belong to Christianity, I guess is what I want to say. Although we do have some. So question number 95, how can we best develop the phase of mediumship, that phase of mediumship? And they mean prophecy. And they say by giving out freely what we believe we're receiving from spirit, the prophecies of an undeveloped medium need not be acted upon, but only by constant practice of giving out that which we receive are we able to develop the ability to receive correctly. Wow, that sounds kind of like a scary process. It's actually quite simple, and I do think that people can be 100% accurate with absolutely no training at all. I think that it has to do with clarity, and it has to do with focus, and it has to do with vibration. And I do think training enhances that because there's a more well-rounded understanding of things, but do they have to be developed? I will argue with them and say no, and but it does help to develop. I'm not saying don't develop. I'm just saying, you know. So, and you do that by they ask, the question was, how can we best develop prophecy in mediumship? I think by becoming very still and by detaching from the outcome and by listening and allowing vision and sight and sensation, predominantly sensation, to come to you about the future for that question or that person. Number 96, if mediums can see into the future and foretell coming events, doesn't that prove predestination? And they say no, a prophecy is usually the direct result of the law of cause and effect, the spirit seeing the cause being enacted and knowing its effect. I guess that's kind of talking about what I would call momentum or trajectory, citing down a timeline. Just because we can see the future and foretell events doesn't mean that we're omniscient. We're not knowing everything. And it just means that we have a sensitivity to that particular question, that particular circumstance, and are able to relay what we know. We too get surprised by life, believe me. Question number 97. What is spirit photography? They say that's a physical phase of mediumship, giving one the power to produce faces and forms of spirit loved ones on a sensitive plate or film, thus producing a spirit picture. It is a very rare phase, and it says Mr. William Hope of England back in the day, having been the best known. So if you're starting to collect names for spiritual history, Mr. William Hope of England apparently was an amazing spirit photographer. And again, that isn't taking a picture with a camera. It has to do with precipitation is the word for it, precipitation. And that's when spirit puts an image on top of something, and they said a plate or film. It's been done on silk. It's been done on index cards. It's been done on clothing and walls and all kinds of things. So it's when spirit brings through pictures, and it's so interesting to see those pictures. Sometimes it doesn't look like they posed for the camera. It just looks like they're drifting through the ethers, and other times it looks like they sat for the portrait. It's kind of interesting to see how those come out. I don't do that, but I've witnessed some. Question number 98. What do you mean when you speak of the spirit forces passing matter through matter? Matter through matter. And they said through the instrumentality of a physical medium, the spirit forces are able to pass solid matter through solid matter without injury to either. This has been accomplished under test conditions, articles from a long distance being transported through the ether and brought into a seance room with closed and locked doors in perfect condition. I'm quite sure that does happen and has happened and will continue to happen. It's kind of wild for us to think about that. And we're like, how could that possibly be? But in reality, as you are fully aware, the objects that appear solid around you are actually less solid, less matter than they are space and emptiness and voidness. So it's kind of cool to think that you could take an object and move it through there. When it lands in a room, like let's say you brought an arrowhead from a Native American village back in the day into the present world, into a room where people are being are sitting together for that particular phenomenon and focused on that possibility with little resistance, then it can appear it's a materialization of an object from the past, and it's called an apport, A-P-P-O-R-T, for those of you that might not be familiar with that. Interesting to think about, and I guess with our new laws of quantum physics and everything, they could probably explain that far better than me. Question 99, of what advantage has mediumship been to the world? Like, what's the point, I guess? Mediumship has brought a lot of comfort to the bereaved, they say, on earth, and has saved many from taking their lives through grief or temporary depression. It has taught men how to live and understand and follow the laws of God or the universe or the matrix. And last but not least, it has taught men not to fear death, but to realize that there is an open portal to eternal life. Yeah, I think it actually, mediumship does comfort the bereaved and does give hope to those that are in despair or depression. And it does teach us how to focus our thoughts and harmonize ourselves with the vibrations of the universe. And it has taught us that life continues. I have a friend I talked to this week, and she just has lost her son 2 years ago, and she's going through such a horrible time. And we're going to do a reading together. She hasn't been ready so far, and she's really torn between sort of wanting to believe that when you're done, and that's it, and, zoop, you're done. But she more, I think, wants to believe that life does continue after death. And for sure it does. I mean, how could all these people give so much evidence and information of their existence and signs and all kinds of wonders there? But it is important, I think, not just from a philosophical state of view, but also to assist people in progressing in their life and to being aware that their response to the people that are in spirit make a difference, that people can feel very frustrated on the other side until someone acknowledges what their existence. They can escalate their activity to a point that's obnoxious for those of us that are still left here on earth. And there's a tremendous amount of healing that can come not only for the people that are here, but also for the spirit that's crossed. You can imagine if you were a mother of 3 and you died of cancer and you weren't able to raise your children, that there would be a huge anxiety about how they're going to do, and the wanting them to know how much you love them and wanting to connect with them and be able to give them advice on situations in their life that are causing them pain and giving them comfort. And so it's a tremendous release for those that have crossed over to be able to connect through a medium to someone here in the living. I kind of think that the medium is sort of like a portal almost, or opens a portal of energy where the two sides can see each other more easily. I've heard that expression, "Thank you for letting me serve between the two worlds," said by mediums on platforms and in demonstration mediumship. And we talk about lifting the veil between the two worlds. It's basically giving clarity to both people that are speaking from two different dimensional states of being. Water is solid and liquid and gaseous, but they don't always resemble each other when they're in their different states of being. And so it is with people. Question 100, what do you believe regarding mediumship's progression in the coming years? Well, let's see what they say. They say that they believe that in the coming years, our mediums will be compelled to be fully developed and educated before they are allowed to appear in public, that illiterate presentations of message work and undignified trance messages and lectures will be done away with, and that only the higher and more beautiful presentations of the phenomenon of modern spiritualism will be allowed. Boy, that's idealistic. It will then be on a plane of spirituality and intellectuality, and any man can accept it regardless of his station in life. That's kind of happening. I believe that in the years to come, you will see a psychic connected with the efficiency program of our largest business establishments and government offices. Well, we do have psychics and remote viewers that work for the government, so that's happening. The wisdom of this more spiritual plane of life will then be utilized to guide those on earth into higher and better avenues of progression. And man will realize that through these teachings, a new standard of living and a practical application of religion to his everyday social and economic problems. You know, they say that we're headed toward 1,000 years of peace, and that enlightenment is coming, at least to the West here, as I think other nations have already been enlightened. I think we're kind of getting it here. There is a change happening in the world, and there is a place for mediumship, because there's so many things that a medium can offer, you know, assistance with grief, assistance with how to handle difficult situations, projections in terms of career path or relationships, or whether or not to move, and if so, where, or what arenas are you best suited for, what resonates with your ability, the easiest to make the easiest path for you. So many things. Not only that, but you know, attuning people to their own spiritual gifts and learning that they are also a spiritual being that is intuitive and capable of creativity and understanding at a deeper level. Yeah. It's so interesting, past lives. You know, there's so many things that people come for readings for. It's not just, so read me, you know, because I don't actually take people that just say that. I want to know, what do you want to know? And then we'll work on that, because again, energy follows focus. My energy will follow your focus, and that of spirit will add to it, and you'll come out with much more than you brought in through the door, guaranteed. And sometimes giving back in ways that you might not expect. I've often gotten at the end of a reading a message from the client that's sitting there unexpectedly. It's been a great joy when that happens. I also think that the role of mediumship is shifting in our world. I think we, you know, in the 1800s, they were really obsessed with proving that life continues after death. And I think the expression is, we are here, we love, you know, we're here, we can see you and we love you still, or something like that was the basic message, because they were really fighting the resistance of people to the concept that life could continue after death. And there are those today that have that same thought, but I think it's a lot more popular or more mainstream to consider that mediumship is, you know, that life does continue. In the mid-1900s, that we saw a wave of demonstration mediumship, and now I think it's more everybody learning for themselves what they can do. So I didn't get to tell you some more about my programs, but I hope you'll find them on my website at mediumtracylockwood.com. Remember, it is never inappropriate to be kind, and without integrity, you have nothing.